Hey guys, today we are going to be taking a look at 8 great clone fragrances that are perfect for summer weather. We're going to be looking at different types of scents, some that are great for the day and some that are going to be better for the nighttime during the summer. So first up, we're going to be taking a look at Invictus Elixir by Fragrance World. And this is a clone of Paco Rabanne Invictus Victory Elixir. So a lot of people think of this fragrance as a cooler weather or a winter fragrance because it is such a vanilla dominant. But to me, I think this is a great summer evening fragrance. This opens up very fresh and tropical to me. It has a lot of lavender, cardamom, and vanilla along with a really nice coconut accord to it. And that coconut accord is what puts me in the mood for summer evening wear. So in addition to that, the opening of Invictus Elixir also has a little bit of a light, sweet, fruity accord to it, which I don't really get a whole lot of that in the original. So while this is probably a little too sweet and a little too tonka and vanilla heavy for the daytime summer heat, to me this stuff works great during the evening in warm weather. Next up we have Club de Nuit Précieux 1, which is Afnan's take on Creed Absolute of Venice. To me, definitely not a one-to-one clone here, but more of an inspired by. This opens up with a blast of freshness with bergamot and lemon. Also has a little bit of sweetness with some pineapple notes in there. Just an amazing fresh opening. Dries down to a nice woody ambroxan with a little bit of leather to round it out, but definitely not too dark and not too heavy. So to me this works great in daytime or nighttime for the summertime. Just a really good fragrance overall. Next up we have one that is a little closer to Absolute of Venice by Creed, and that is Poseidon's Absolute Elixir by Dua Fragrances. This opens with a lot of bergamot and grapefruit. It's a little bit different than Précieux 1. This is more on the lighter and fresher citrus side, and it is closer to the original. It dries down into that ambroxan and pink pepper with a little bit of spicy ginger. Still a little bit of difference than the Creed Absolute of Venice, but fairly close. And personally, I really love the way this stuff smells because of that just amazing opening with ginger and grapefruit. That gives it more of a blast of freshness and kind of strays away from the sweetness that you get from the Précieux 1. Performance on this is also amazing. I get about 10 hours of longevity and I get really good projection for a couple of hours out of this. Overall, super impressed with this fragrance. Next up, moving to a fragrance that's a little bit more on the refined and classy side, but just amazing during the high heat. And that is Porto Naroli by Maison Alhambra. And this is a clone of Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino. This fragrance is just super refreshing and very clean. This smells like a shower gel that you would smell in a high-end hotel. It opens up with just a mixture of a lot of different citrus notes like lemon and orange, but the star of the show is the neroli and the white florals that are in the mid, and then it turns into this light floral citrus musky scent. Overall, just extremely clean and super refreshing. Alright, next up by Maison Alhambra we have Victorioso, which this is a clone of Paco Rabanne Invictus. So this is a very fresh and aquatic fragrance. It opens up with a lot of sweet citruses, also has that kind of sweet bubblegum scent to it. Although to me this one is not as prominent as it is in the original, but also has a very light oceanic or aquatic vibe to it as well. Not that briny, musty seawater scent that you get in some aquatics, but more of a fresh and clean marine scent. This is extremely inoffensive, extremely versatile. Hard to dislike this fragrance. Very similar to Rosassi Hawass, that type of fragrance. And of everything on the list, this is probably the fragrance that will get you the most compliments out of anything else on this list. It's really hard not to like this fragrance. Longevity is pretty good, about 4 to 6 hours. Light to moderate projection. Also comes with an insanely low price. All right, next up we have Glacier Bowl by Maison Alhambra. And this is their take on Le Beau Le Parfum by Jean-Paul Gaultier. So this is another one of those slightly tropical coconut style fragrances. You get kind of like a almost pineapple and coconut and citrus opening when you first spray it on. Then it kind of turns into a really fresh and tonka bean style fragrance with a little bit of warmth, woodiness, and amber. It is slightly different than the original, but you still get a really good summer fragrance out of this, and it's also inexpensive as well. Longevity is about 4 to maybe 6 hours, and projection is light to moderate. To me, this is a great daytime summer fragrance and also can be used in the evening. I would probably go light on the sprays with this once it gets into the over 95 degree heat, because that dry down of that vanilla and tonka may be just a little too cloying. And next up we have the wildly popular Lattafa Mahir Legacy. This is a clone of Parfum de Marly's Sedley. So to me, they do a fairly good job of coming close to the original in Sedley. It does miss some of that transition between a nice fresh lime and mint fragrance with that herbal quality. So Mahir Legacy comes fairly close to doing that. It opens with a nice blast of lime, citruses, and mint. Has a slight herbal quality to it. It doesn't quite stand out as it does in the original. Nonetheless, the opening smells really nice. Dries down into a lightly minty, slightly herbal ambroxan fragrance. Personally, I really love Parfum de Marly Sedley. It's one of my favorite fragrances from them. So certainly not a one-to-one clone here. But even if you look at this as a standalone fragrance, you get that mojito vibe with lime and mint. A little bit of freshness with lavender. Overall, this is a perfect high heat daytime summer fragrance. This stuff is awesome for the price. All right, guys, last fragrance here, and we are looking at Maison Alhambra's Alpine Homme Sport. And this is a clone of Chanel's Allure Homme Sport. And this is an extremely clean and extremely fresh fragrance. This opens up with orange, very light C notes, but mostly aldehydes. That's a very clean and soapy note that also has a distinct scent, very similar to like fresh laundry or laundry detergent. Now the clone leans way more into the aldehydes as opposed to the citruses, and you don't really get that orange and vanilla opening in the clone that you do in the original. Having said that, it is insanely inexpensive. I think I paid $16 for this. It is extremely clean and fresh, and I really like to wear this on those really high heat days. Biggest downside of this fragrance is going to be performance. I get around 2 hours of longevity out of this. If I really lather myself in this, I can get about 4. And of course, projection is going to be weak on this as well. So now, while these fragrances were not in any order, I will say that Alpine Homme Sport is probably the least popular of everything on my list, but it is still a really good fragrance for summertime. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed my quick review of 8 summertime fragrance clones. And if you stuck around this long, please do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button if you want more content on fragrance clones, designers, and Middle Eastern fragrances.